The first thing, the research is the research philosophies that we talk about. So we talk about a lot of ontologies, epistemologies, then axiology, different kind of assumptions which are there. And we also look at the philosophies which we normally follow. So based on these assumptions and based on these philosophies, we design our research. Further, based on designing our research, which could be qualitative, quantitative, mixed method, conceptual, empirical, or a review paper. So questionnaire development is basically the sets the ground how you're going to conduct further the analysis and everything. So without wasting any further time, let me just talk about first thing, which is very important for everybody to understand, which is research onion model by Saunders et al. I hope my screen is clearly visible to everybody. And as a protocol, if you have any questions in between, you can either put it in the chat box or just wait for 15-20 minutes so that I finish with that topic and then I can take up the questions. All right. So if you just try to observe all the rings of this onion, just to understand the deeper thing of the research, what we basically do and how do we basically plan our research, right? And put it on the full screen. I hope this is okay now. All right. See, now look at the outer ring. You can see there are 5 rings, 2 blue, and there are 4 lighter blue rings. If you look at the first ring, which talks about the philosophies, and the philosophies are positivism, realism, interpretivism, and pragmatism. Now, for all these philosophies, whatever we follow, if we generally understand the word positivism, positivism basically means we are doing a quantitative research. We are doing a quantitative research, right? When we talk of interpretivism, we talk of qualitative research. And when we talk of pragmatism, we do a mixed method research. Now, for whatever philosophy we adopt, we always plan on the basis of some assumptions which are known as ontology, epistemology, and axiology. These words sound very heavy when you first listen to them, but if you understand the meaning, you'll be able to plan your positivism research, realism, interpretivism, or the pragmatism. So let's first understand these 3 terms, what these 3 terms basically means. Now, when I say ontological assumptions, it means how a researcher looks at the reality. For example, if I give you an example here, if I ask you, what is the status of metaverse adoption? Or let's say metaverse experience. What would be your answer? If you can just write it in the chat box, what would you say? How do you look at this reality? Do you think metaverse, how many have experienced the metaverse or people are still experiencing this metaverse? What do you think the reality is? Can I just have the answers in the chat box? What do you think it is? How many of you have experienced metaverse or do you think that people have started experiencing metaverse? Please put it in the chat box. I think it should be a dialogue rather than just, making me talk about the topic and you're not responding. It would be good if you guys respond. Nobody's interested in responding. Doesn't matter. I've asked you a very, very simple question. I have asked you simple question. Let's say any question. How do you see the reality? Matlab, what do you think that have people experienced metaverse or not? Just answer. They have experienced, they may have experienced, they may not have experienced. What do you think is the reality? Simple thing. Let me put the question in a different manner. Mobile technology adoption. Or let's say, let me make it more Simple. UPI adoption. What is the penetration rate of UPI adoption? Do you think in India everybody has adopted, or there is some other reality which you think is there? Now, I have made the question very simple, which anybody can understand. So, what is the reality? What do you think? Mm-hmm. Okay, they're experiencing adoption level is high for tech-friendly people. All right. Most of them, still many left. All right. You've got the question, right? So now, just to make you understand, 8 people responded, and out of 8 people, all the responses were almost different. If you look at the chat box, 3 said they have, adopted. 4 said maybe they are still experiencing it, yet to adopt, or 1 or 2 said that they are yet to adopt. So if you look at just at the 9 people, and we have got 3 to 4 different kind of responses, which means every researcher or every person looks at the reality in a different way, isn't it? So when you look at the reality in a different way, what does that mean? It means every person perceives any kind of a problem or any kind of a situation differently. So now, suppose if you want to check, if you want to check, what do you want to check? Whether the UPI adoption or, or the penetration level. Let me see the penetration level of UPI adoption, right? Now, the people who have said that adoption has already happened, those who said yes, and there were few people who said ki few are left, and there were people it is still happening, right? Different responses. Now, people who are saying that yes, that adoption has been there. So that means they are assuming that there is only one reality, and people have assumed that their technology adoption has happened. So they adopt a method which is known as positivism, which means quantitative method of research, because they believe everybody has adopted. So we know what are the factors of technology adoption. You said it is yet to adopt or maybe. So those who are saying few, that means unko lagta hai few have adopted, few have not adopted, right? When they're saying few have adopted, few have not adopted. So that means there is more than one reality. There is more than one reality. हो सकता है adopt कर लिया, हो सकता है नहीं किया, right? So when people see that there is more than one reality and you don't have a fixed answer to it, right? And what kind of answer we're looking at? Either yes or no. So people who have said yes, the technology adoption has happened, they believe that yes, we are available with the evidences. Either it is in the newspaper, it is either in the literature, or it is either in the reports or whatever, right? And say they just have to identify those factors, and that can be done by a quantitative survey method. पर जिनको लगता है कि नहीं, शायद कुछ लोगों ने कर लिया है, कुछ लोगों ने नहीं किया, तो इसका मतलब अभी कुछ चीजें हैं जो पेंडिंग हैं. The research is still not complete. So the people, so what I'm trying to convey here is, let me just add a few slides. Right? So those who are saying yes, and those who are saying no, and those who are saying maybe. Yes wale, one reality. So that means they think that reality is one that the people have adopted, which means that you will do the research through a survey method. But when you say that no, which means that It has not been adopted, so the research is still incomplete, and we are on the stage of exploration, which means we will do a qualitative research. And people who say maybe, शायद हो गया हो, शायद ना हुआ हो, again we have multiple realities. So here it is going to be a kind of a mixed method approach. Now, to understand ontology and epistemology, ontology is how a researcher looks at the reality. Now, in a class of 50 people, we are seeing that 10 people responded, and out of 10, everybody was looking at this reality of technology adoption in a different way, right? And what was that different way? Yes, no, maybe. That is your ontology, how a researcher, how you look at the reality. What is the reality according to you? Epistemology says how you are going to check this reality. आप ये कह रहे हो कि adoption नहीं हुआ. How are you going to prove it? Are you going to prove it through qualitative research? Are you going to prove it through quantitative research? Or are you going to prove it through a mixed method approach? Or could be experimental approach, or could be through conceptual, or whatever. These are the three main approaches, right? So how do you want to achieve that reality? Whatever you believe, I hope I'm making myself clear. Whatever you believe, now you have to prove your point. And how will you prove that point? You can prove that point either through a qualitative research, or through a quantitative research, or through a mixed method research, right? And there is a third assumption which is known as axiology. Whenever we are doing a research, what kind of values and beliefs we believe in, that also makes impact on our research. If we are doing a qualitative research, we belong to a different culture, we have different values which might, uh, you know, conflict at certain point. So axiology assumptions are also there. However, what you need to understand is ontology and epistemology, right? So the first case, if you look at is the case which I have already explained. I have talked about the adoption of technology, simple UPI. Here I have given the case of a farmer's adoption of technology, right? So you may say high, you may say low, you may say maybe. Epistemology means how do you gain knowledge about the reality, what you are saying, which I have explained again. It could be through positivism, interpretivism, pragmatism, and realism. Realism is what we see and what we experience. So if I go back here now, I have only explained the outer circle. I talked about the philosophies on assumptions, ontology, epistemology, and axiology, which is the generic thing under whatever research you take. Whether you take up a quantitative research, whether you take up a qualitative research, whether you take up a mixed method or whatever, all these type of philosophies will have their own assumptions, right? Is that clear? Axiology means what are the beliefs of social, what are your values and beliefs? This is how I can contribute. Values and beliefs, which means that how you are going to contribute in that particular study is your axiology assumption. You may have certain social values, you may be bound by certain social factors, you may be bound by certain cultural factors. So those cultural factors may and may not affect your uh, research approach. That is called an axiological assumption. So what is your contribution? How you are going to contribute in terms of your social values and beliefs as a researcher. Okay? Okay. Now, if just to make you more clear, Axiology assumption is made by a researcher regarding the influence of values and beliefs on the research. For example, you have a generic belief whenever you start reading about the research and you talk to people. Generally people say that parametric test is a stronger test than non-parametric. So what is it? That is your belief. So you start believing that whatever I do, whatever kind of a research question I have, I will apply a parametric test on only. Right or wrong? So your social values, your beliefs affects your research. However, you don't go by your research question. You start believing people, you start believing in that particular culture, which talks about that. If the culture is that quantitative research is more acceptable, so by default, you will bring that quantitative aspect in your research. That is an axiology assumption. So you start believing. However, here, when you strongly believe in a particular assumption, you tend to make the research questions also like that, because you are assuming that parametric test is stronger. You believe that qualitative is not a good thing to be done. Quantitative is better, or maybe qualitative gives you an in-depth understanding. Even if you feel that through the literature, most of the research which has been done, we already have the evidences in our hand. So there is no point going ahead with qualitative, but you still go for qualitative because you believe that this will probably give you more answers, right? So that is your researcher's belief. So that should, how that plays a role in the research is also very important. I hope now it is clear. Somebody asked that question about the axiology assumption. Okay. Now, why I'm explaining this in the questionnaire development, let me just go back again. Now, when you decide your approach, then you decide whether you're going to do a deductive approach and inductive approach. Now, what is second step is you talk about the approaches. Now, what is that approach? Now, the onion layer 2, which talks about the research approach, it talks about inductive approach, it talks about deductive approach, and it talks about the abduction report. Uh, Before this, just understand this slide also. If anybody, I don't know whether you would be, if you have got the gist of what I was trying to explain, you will get this slide also. See, look at all the philosophies which are listed in red color. Positivism, ontology, epistemology, and axiology. All three are different for each approach, right? If you're following a positivism, assumption ontology is that there is one reality, and epistemology क्या होगा आपका कि facts are measurable, observable, and there are evidences available. If you do a qualitative research, you decide on that you can see the reality through qualitative, which means that the reality is complex and there are many realities. Epistemology, simple theories. Here, there could be that the facts are not measurable, and whatever you get is probably maybe intangible, or maybe you're trying to explore few more things apart from whatever is given in the literature. And this is a value bound research. Now, what here, when you talk about positivism, we talk of two things: deductive approach, and when we talk of qualitative, we talk of inductive approach. Now, what is the difference between these two approaches, and how do we basically deductive approach and now when you say deductive here, you are doing a quantitative research. When you say inductive approach you're following, which means you are doing a qualitative research. Other name for qualitative is also interpretivism. And quantitative, you also call it as positivism. Okay. When you start with a deductive approach, you actually have a theory in place. Which means, and you have a model based on that theory, which means A and B and C leads to D and further leading to A. You have a theory in place and you make a survey based on these constructs, and whatever you're getting here, you are just going to confirm whether A leads to B, B leads to D or not, C leads to D, D leads to E or not. And you come out with certain results here, whatever your observations are. However, when you do a qualitative research, you start with observations. Here, you finish with observations and results. Here, you start with observations. Based on those observations, you suggest certain propositions. What do? You suggest certain propositions. What is a proposition? Proposition means that there is a probability that A and B is leading to E, and E may also lead to D and F. So there is no hypothesis testing. There is not a hypothesis, because hypothesis is when we do it in the survey, and we actually do hypothesis testing based on our previous literature, where evidences are available. Where evidences are already available, there could be a probability that A is leading to D in some other discipline, and B too leading to D is maybe in the other discipline. But we're trying to collate few things and we build up a model. Here, we do not do the hypothesis testing, but from the observations and from the participant, whatever the interview we conduct, whatever stories they tell us, we make certain propositions on the basis of which we try to develop a theory. So the basic difference between quantitative and qualitative is, in a quantitative study, we start with a theory, and in a qualitative, we end with a theory. But we do not do the hypothesis testing. And based on this theory, we only have, what do we have? We only have propositions. We only have propositions. I hope now this is, are you clear with these basic terms? Qualitative, quantitative, positivism, interpretivism, ontology, epistemology, philosophy, assumptions. Every research, whether it is qualitative or whether it is quantitative, it has ontology and epistemology, number one. Number two, quantitative follows a deductive approach. Qualitative follows a inductive approach, right? Now, if you look at this here, after second onion ring, we have this third ring. Can you see here? Now, this is the stage where you make your questionnaire. Why I took 15-20 minutes or maybe half an hour just to come to the third layer and tell you when do you need, where do you, where you should be when you should start making your questionnaire. That means in the third ring. Now, you look at this, whatever the methods you're adopting, if you're taking a deductive approach, which means a positivism approach, you may design experiment, you may design a survey. If you're taking an inductive approach where you tend to build a theory, qualitative, you may have a grounded theory approach, you may have an ethnography approach, and you may have a case study approach, right? So this is the basic difference, right? Now, so what do we do? Basically, deductive and inductive. Deductive starts with hypothesis, empirical observation, analysis. Sorry, it starts with theory, hypothesis, empirical observation, and analysis. Inductive starts with observation, analysis, and theory. I hope I'm clear. Deductive will start from here. And inductive will start from here. Observations. Cycle remains the same. Right? It starts from theory. It will build a theory. This is what I've explained. You just give 2 minutes to yourself and just look at this slide. I'll just wait for 30, 40 seconds so that you understand that slide. And if you have any questions, you can ask me. Any questions? You can unmute yourself and ask me in case you have any doubts.
So, ma'am, in the deductive approach, we test the theory?
We test the theory, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Right? We're testing the theory. And here we build a theory. Okay?
So mixed method will be what, ma'am?
Mixed method will be abductive. I'll tell you, abductive approach. If you look here, just enough data to formulate theory. For example, in medicine, identification of suspects at criminal site, you generate theory by observations. Mixed method follows an abductive approach. Means, suppose now, let me just take you, I'll explain here how it is abductive. If you're following a mixed method approach, what happens is you are following both qual plus quant, correct? Your qual is inductive and quant is deductive. So when you combine both inductive and deductive, it becomes abductive. AB. So abductive. Here,
So what's the cycle here? Means what's the cycle we will follow here?
that's simple. Now what happens is when you follow a mixed method, there could be a sequential research and there could be a parallel research. By sequential, I mean you can either have a research where the first phase is qualitative and the second phase is quantitative, right? Or the first phase is quantitative leading to qualitative. Possible? When you are doing a qualitative research first, this means it is an explanatory sequential research. When you're following a case, this one, A case, 1A, it is an explanatory sequential.
Ma'am, any example of it, if you can?
Give me just 1 minute. When you do a quantitative first, right? Sorry, this is exploratory, not explanatory. When you do a qualitative first, it's exploratory sequential. And when you do a quantitative first, then it is explanatory sequential. Now, these are the two types of sequential research. Under parallel, there is a possibility that you may do qual in parallel with quant. Right? What happens there? You conduct an interview, semi-structured interview with that respondent first. Parallelly, you also give him one survey to fill up. So parallelly, two research is going on. That is a parallel mixed method research. So you have a sequential and parallel. Now, let me give you an example in exploratory sequential. For example, let's see, you have, let's say, study on organizational justice dimensions, right? And we want to examine the phenomenon of organizational justice dimension. Literature normally has revealed that there are three major dimensions of justice. Now, this was established long way, almost 20, 30 decades back, or earlier, 2, 3 decades back. So, Now we want to see that is there any other justice dimension which has come up. So what are we going to do? We're going to interview the people, maybe in a company or maybe individually or whatever we plan. So and we realize that now there are not three, but there are two more dimensions which have been added to the justice. Now whatever the two dimensions have been added, now there are two more dimensions have been added, and now there are, we believe that there are five dimensions. People also measure the justice based on the time spent by them in the office. She is spending more time, and maybe somebody else is spending less time. So they see the justice there also, that he has to spend more time because of whatever reason, maybe because of the boss or maybe because of the position or whatever, right? Maybe people are also doing it on the basis of the spatial justice. Somebody has got a cabin and somebody of the same position is not having a cabin. So new two dimensions have come up. So these are, so people have exploratorily found out. Now they want to test that. So how will they do? Now they will say that one, two, three were earlier, four, five have been added, all this leading to organizational justice. Now you test this model. First, you explored the dimensions, then you test. So what was the sequence? Because you think that there is a change in the environment, maybe because of the technology, maybe because of the pandemic, maybe because of the financial crisis, whatever has happened in the environment. So whatever the changes have been there, due to which few things have changed, right? So that is the reason why a person did a mixed method. So qualitative first and quant later. However, there could be another researcher which already has seen the literature that five dimensions already exist. So he starts his research with quantitative and confirms that whether it exists in some particular industry or not. So the sequence gets reversed, quant first and qualitative later, right? So this is a mixed method research. Now what happens here is whenever you're doing such kind of research, now how do you decide whether you're going to take up a qualitative research? There is some noise in the background. If you could please mute yourself. So whenever there is a qualitative research, we follow a semi-structured. Pooja ma'am, if you could please mute the participants. Qualitative research. So we follow a semi-structured question, right? Whenever we do a quantitative research, we do a survey method and we have to make it have a structured questionnaire. Now, please understand the difference between what is a structured questionnaire and what is a semi-structured questionnaire. Semi-structured is made in the qualitative and structured is actually a part of a quantitative study. When we say the questionnaire is structured, it means it is closed-ended. And when we say qualitative, it is called as an open-ended questionnaire. Now, why open-ended and why closed-ended? Why qualitative is called as an emerging research design and is flexible in nature. So whenever we do or make a semi-structured, the questions which we make and whenever we speak to a respondent, we realize that there are few trigger questions which we might ask, which we normally ask whenever because the questionnaire is not closed. We do not have any fixed question. We only have our research questions with us. What do we have? We basically have only our research questions with us, right? And these research questions tell us whether to go for a qualitative study or a quantitative study. Now, the point here, which is of discussion, is that whenever we make our research questions, these research questions comes from a problem statement, right? So understand the flow. When you have a normal problem statement, for example, if you look at this, look at the first point: to determine the relationship between mental health and help-seeking behaviors in organizations. Now, this is your problem statement. This is your problem which you're trying to solve. Now, can you develop research questions? First thing now, how are you going to frame your objectives? How are you going to make your research question? First is when you look at this problem, now you need to speak to yourself and understand how do you see the reality. Number one, if you think that there is a relationship between mental health and help seeking behaviors in the organizations, and do you think that the things are already available in the literature? Some reports are saying that there is a relationship, but what kind of relationship is there, right? You're looking at the reality. So in that case, you will go for a quantitative study. But when you look at this problem, that there are multiple realities, right? There could be some help-seeking behaviors and there could not be, or maybe there are certain cases which only look for help. There are not all the cases that look for help. Then your first research question would be, what kind of problems or diseases or maybe social issues look for help in the society? पहले तो आपको ये पता होना चाहिए कि कौन सी प्रॉब्लम्स के लोग हेल्प सीक करते हैं. फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन. सो व्हेन यू हैव टू, so this is the second type of reality you're looking at. So when you look at the reality like this, so your first question has become exploratory in nature. By exploratory, I mean it has become a qualitative in nature. But if you look at the reality that the relationship is already there and we know what is it, so what you do is you directly look at a theory which is explaining this, and you start making a survey and you go for a quantitative research, isn't it? So my point of discussion, the problem statement is, first, how do you look at the reality? Please speak to yourself and understand. So once you look at the reality and you start building the rough questions, do you know the reality? And to what extent do you know the reality? That will help you in building the questions, right? What is the relationship between the realities, whatever the variables? Are the variables available for your problem statement? Are the variables available for your problem statement? If yes, can it be solved through a theory which is available? If yes, go for quant and make a structured questionnaire, right? Which is going to be closed-ended, with no choice of adding or deleting a questionnaire once you plot. However, if you think that the variables are still to be explored, I can look at some other problem which is unexplored. So you will go for a qualitative research, right? And in that qualitative research, you will make a semi-structured questionnaire. And at every stage means whenever you're asking to a first respondent, you might feel that I should also ask this. So you add one more question to your semi-structured questionnaire. So you speak to a second respondent and you still feel that there are few trigger questions which I can add. So you add two more. You go to a fifth respondent. His experience is absolutely different and you find a new variable coming up, right? So you change it and you decide that let me just speak to now some focus group. Let me just conduct a focus group discussion at the fifth participant. So you decide and you change the research design. You still following a qualitative, but the data collection procedure, you will have also collected the interviews, but now you tend to speak to more people in a group and you decide to go for a focus group discussion. So what are you basically doing? You are following a qualitative research design, which is more flexible and which is emerging. As you speak to the participants, your design is getting emerged, right? And because why? Why? Because you have an open-ended questionnaire. You can add, delete, make changes in the questionnaire, whatever you want, right? I hope it is now clear to you that first thing you need to understand is your problem statement. From the problem statement, you derive your research questions. Now, the kind of research questions you frame, that will decide whether you should go for a qualitative research, quantitative research, or a mixed method. And on the basis of that, your questionnaire will be finalized. If you go for a qualitative, it is going to be a semi-structured. If you're going for a survey or a quant, you will go for a survey design. I hope it is clear, right? Okay. Now I'm coming to a very important discussion again. I have just explained now till now that how one should design a research. You should directly not come to the questionnaire and directly not come to the variables, but you should understand that what kind of research or what kind of philosophy or you are basically approach you're going to take. I will come to this, Pranjali. Likert scale is open-ended or closed-ended. I will come. अभी तो मैंने scales की बात ही नहीं की है. So please wait for at least half an hour to give you this explanation. For parallel mixed method, it will be, if you're adopting a mixed method approach, mixed method, I have told you, you will have both qualitative and quantitative. So if you're doing a first qualitative in the phase 1 and quantitative in the phase 2, qualitative study will have a semi-structured questionnaire first. See, please understand, you have qualitative, you're clear, semi-structured.
मैम कैन आई स्पीक प्लीज
हाँ, please बताइए.
मैम जैसे फॉर माय फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन लाइक आई एम डूइंग माय पीएचडी तो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज एक्सप्लोरेटरी व्हिच इज क्वालिटेटिव
Correct.
and
Okay.
rest all questions are quantitative with method, so it's a mixed method approach. So how my questionnaire would be?
See now, if your first question is very elaborate or you are just including it in your questionnaire only, do you have two set of questionnaires, or you just have one where one or two questions are qualitative and rest are quant? Is it this way?
Yes ma'am, yes
You're
ma'am,
following this method. So it is a
yes,
mixed method approach. So in one question only you're taking it, na?
yes ma'am.
Are you from social science background, social sciences?
And management, human resource management, and mix of psychology.
So usually social science students or the psychology students follow this approach. So this is the kind of the questionnaire you will be following. This is okay. This is a mixed method approach where you have semi-structured also and you have a quant also.
Okay ma'am, thank you.
So what exactly do you want to ask?
Ma'am, like my questionnaire, will I be like I am thinking of taking interviews also for exploratory and quantitative also, wherein survey is there. So should I make
Fine.
one questionnaire or should I have separate questionnaires?
See,
Structured, semi-structured.
if you're planning to conduct the interviews and the surveys from the same respondents,
No,
from the same,
respondents would be different.
no, but if you're having a one questionnaire where both qualitative and quantitative are there, how the respondents will be different?
Okay, okay.
Respondents will be same, right?
Right,
So
ma'am.
what is your sampling design? Are you going to take it from different people, qualitative different and quant different? So then there will be two set of questionnaires. One would
Ma'am,
be qualitative.
I was thinking from experts, I will take interviews, and from
Hmm.
students, I will get the questionnaires filled.
You've got two samples, na? That means.
Right, right.
So how can you merge these two? You
Okay,
will have
ma'am.
two questions. No? One will be semi-structured, which you will take it from experts, and second you will take it from students. So you're trying to see
Okay,
the difference in the perceptions probably, right?
okay. Yeah,
If I'm
ma'am.
not wrong, right? Got it?
Yeah. Okay, ma'am.
I'll show you, don't worry. Abhi to let me just begin with the questionnaire development. Mixed method questionnaire, I've told you. If possible, show some samples of both types. I will show you, don't worry. We have a class tomorrow also, so we'll talk about it. First, understand the concepts and everything, the basic concepts. Okay. Now, let's talk about Let's understand the variables now first, and let's understand what is a scale. Let me first explain you the variables rather than taking you to the measurement. Talk about the data. Let me just talk about, have that slide with me 1 minute. There are two things which you need to understand. First is variables and another is scale, right? Variables, constructs, factors. These are used interchangeably. If you know some theory, let me just take a simple hypothetical example. A, B, C leading to D. 1. A leading to B leading to C. One example. A leading to C, and we have. Now, A, B, C, D. These are variables. What is a variable? If we understand the definition of variables, anything that varies, right? Now, these variables could be qualitative in nature and they could be quantitative in nature, right? When we say variables are qualitative in nature, for example, gender is qualitative variable. Quantitative variable would be what? Age, right? Anything that varies. This gender could be male and female. Variation क्या है? सिर्फ male and female, right? Age of a respondent, it varies, but it is a quantitative variable. Now, if I look at these theories, these A, B, C, D, these are known as constructs. These are known as constructs. These are also known as factors. These are also known as variables. And it is leading to D, which is again a variable, construct, or a factor. Now, there is a possibility that A is made up of A1, A2, A3, A4. B is also made up of B1, B2, B3. C is also made up of C1, C2, and C3. A1, A2, A3, and A4. These are called items. Okay. B1, B2, B3. These are also called items. C1, C2, C3. These are also called items. So these items, they have some relationship with this factor, which is also known as construct, which is also known as variable. A1, A2, A3. So अगर मैं इसको ऐसे बोलूं A1 plus A2 plus A3 plus A. These are the items that make construct A. B1 plus B2 plus B3 plus B4 are the items which make construct B. Right? All these constructs together, A leads to D, B leads to D, C leads to D. Right? A, B, and C, they together leads to D. However, there will be a difference that how much A is contributing to D. B कितना contribute कर रहा है D को और C कितना contribute कर रहा है वो difference होगा. ठीक है, लेकिन A, B, C तीनों मिलके they are leading to D. Understood? So, and there is a variation in all A, B, C, and D. So that is why they are known as a variable. Now, there are two other things. Scale. अब A1, A2, A3, A4 को मैंने measure करना है. I want to measure A1, A2, A3 and 4. How I'm going to measure these items? Because from these measurement of these items will ultimately lead to the measurement of A value. If I want to say that I want to measure age, how will I measure it? I will ask simply, what is your age? And you will say 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever is your age, right? So my measurement is very clear. I have measured the age and what is the unit here? Years. If I want to ask you weight, 20, 30, 35, 40, 45, 45.5, 46.5, measurable, right? I'm measuring them directly by asking you. However, if I ask you, are you happy with your job? So what I'm asking, happiness in the job. How will you answer this question? Do you have any scale to measure the happiness in the job? Will you say 10, 20, 30, 40? No. What would your answer be? It could be yes. It could be no. It could be, I don't know. It could be maybe. Or maybe you will say, I'm happy, but if they would have given me more flexibility in my job, I would have been happier. Right? So, what are you saying? That flexibility is an important dimension of happiness. Now, I'm talking of dimension. I'm not talking of an item here. I'm talking of a dimension here. Flexibility. You will say that I have a very good relationship with my boss. What is it called? LMX. So happiness also comprises of LMX. You will say family also gives you happiness. Friends also give you happiness. So what are these? These are called as dimensions of this particular construct. So you are measuring happiness through flexibility, LMX, family, and friends. And this flexibility will be measured by certain items, F1, F2, F3, F4. LMX, L1, L2, L3. Family, F1, F2, F3. Friends, FR1, FR2, FR3, F4. So we have a zero order construct, right? We have a first order and second order. I will not go into that, but I'm just explaining you things like that. So what I'm doing is my happiness is a construct or a variable or a factor. However, happiness is made up of these dimensions. So when you make your questionnaire, how will you measure happiness? You are not measuring happiness directly because you are not having directly items here. You're measuring it through flexibility. You're measuring it through LMX. You're measuring it through family and friends. So this happiness, any construct which cannot be measured directly will be known as a latent construct. Latent construct. जिस कंस्ट्रक्ट को हम डायरेक्टली मेजर नहीं कर सकते, we are measuring it through certain dimensions, then that construct is known as a latent construct. Understood? Clear? What are constructs? What are variables, factors, latent construct, dimensions, and items? So that now I will proceed to the type of variables. Any doubt?
Ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, when do they become factors, ma'am? Can you please clarify once again? Factors कब हो जाएंगे ये?
ये
Variables
फैक्टर नहीं है,
constructs I understood.
है ना? ये वेरिएबल्स को हम फैक्टर्स भी बोलते हैं. अब आपने सपोज जब आपने शुरू में क्वेश्चनर बनाया, वो सारे वेरिएबल्स थे, वो सारे वेरिएबल्स थे जो आपने अपनी स्टडी के लिए लिए, करेक्ट?
Yes, ma'am.
नम्रता, अंडरस्टैंड?
Yes,
प्लीज
yes, ma'am.
अंडरस्टैंड.
Yes.
हाँ, उसी को हम फैक्टर, सपोज इफ यू हैव टेकन अ predetermined a priori theory which says A leads to B, which
Okay.
says A leads to B.
Hmm.
Now, जब मैं पहली थ्योरी, मेरे को मालूम है कि ये थ्योरी है, तो आई विल नॉट रन एन एक्सप्लोरेटरी फैक्टर एनालिसिस है. I will
Yes.
directly go to the confirmatory factor analysis. So now these two, A leading to B, I'm saying A leads to B. These are factors only. They're also known as constructs. They're
Constructs.
also known as variables. So variables, constructs, factors एक ही चीज है.
एक ही चीज. Okay,
इनमें
ma'am.
कोई difference नहीं है.
Thank you, ma'am.
ठीक है, हम क्या करते हैं जब हम EFA, let me please finish. जब हम EFA रन करते हैं, जब हमें डायमेंशन कम करने होते हैं, तब हम जब उनको रन करते हैं तो हम वो फैक्टर्स, लोडिंग्स और वो सब आते हैं. बट अदरवाइज व्हाट इट इज मेजरिंग इज वो कंस्ट्रक्ट को ही मेजर कर रहा है. इट कॉल्स इट एज फैक्टर लोडिंग. क्योंकि वो विल टॉक अबाउट इट लेटर, सो आई विल नॉट कंफ्यूज यू विद दैट. बट जस्ट फॉर टुडेज सेशन प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड वेरिएबल्स, कंस्ट्रक्ट, फैक्टर्स आर वन एंड द सेम थिंग.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
ये चीजें आगे बनी होती, इनको अगर हम आगे किसी चीज से बनी है, जैसे मैंने आपको एग्जांपल दिया हैप्पीनेस का, दे आर मेड अप ऑफ फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी, एलिमेंट्स, फैमिली, फ्रेंड्स. These are the dimensions of that particular construct. When you do not measure that construct directly, you're measuring it through certain dimensions. That construct is known as a latent construct. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Thank you.
Why it is not items but not dimensions? मैंने आपको बताया ना कि I've just told you that items and dimensions. When we have a construct and we measure it through certain items. Here, items mean statements. For example, the statement is, suppose I want to calculate some maths liking. So what would be my statements? I like geometry. I like trigonometry. I like algebra. What is this? How I'm measuring my likingness towards maths? Through these statements. And these are also known as items. These are not dimensions. Dimensions have items. This is a construct. This construct has, suppose if this construct is happiness, this has dimension 1, dimension 2, dimension 3, dimension 4. This will be measured by item. Item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. Again, this will have items. There is also a possibility that this dimension may also have further dimensions. Quite possible. Right? But मैं आपको stages बता रही हूँ कि वो भी possible है. Construct, dimension, item. This construct is nothing but a variable or a factor. Is this clear? Construct, variable, factor. ये एक ही बात है. Construct, maybe there is also a possibility कि एक construct है वो सीधा हम item से ही measure कर रहे हैं. Item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. So these are items or statements. And this is your construct.
Ma'am, in this case, the construct is also known as a latent variable.
Which case? This case or this case?
From the second one, where you have mentioned construct made up of dimension and then dimensions are made up of some items.
You're talking of this case?
Second case.
This one? This one? Second case? This one?
Yeah.
No,
Ma'am.
this is not a latent construct. Latent construct is the one which cannot be measured directly. Here, यहाँ पे तो हम measure कर रहे हैं directly in items के through.
ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟಿವ್ ಏನಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವನಿಗೆ
Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Soumya.
ನಾವು ಬರುತ್ತೆ
Poonam ma'am, I will request you to kindly please mute the participants if there is some noise at the background.
Ma'am, you need to make me the co-host
I
because
will. Yeah,
drop
please,
the
ma'am.
net connection.
Oh, I will make you a co-host, please. Thank you. Right? Understood? So this is not a latent construct because we are measuring it through items. Here we cannot directly measuring it through items. We are measuring it through some other construct. That is why this construct here, this is a latent construct. This one. This is a latent construct. This is not a latent construct. Understood? No, dimension is not a latent construct. This is a latent construct. This one. Dimension तो आप directly item से measure करो. Any construct which can be measured through items is not a latent construct. Latent construct जो हम directly measure नहीं कर सकते through items, उसको बोलते हैं. Is that clear? Simple example याद रखो. Happiness का, job satisfaction का, इनको आप directly measure नहीं कर सकते. Perceptions हैं. These are very, very intangible things. जितनी भी intangible things होती हैं, उनको आप directly measure नहीं कर सकते. Attitude है, behavior है, ये बहुत सारी चीजों से मिलके बनती है. That is why these are known as the latent constructs. Okay? Is that clear? Any doubt? Please ask if there is any doubt.
Ma'am, in the previous slide, when you have just started, in that diagram, the first variable that you have taken is a construct because it is measurable by the different parameters like A, B, C.
This one, this one.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So
In this
it is,
case, D is a construct or the latent variable, and A, B, C are
no.
the
This is, I told that this is a theory. A, B, C leads to D. A, B, C leads to D. A is a construct, B is a construct, C is a construct, D is a construct. A is measured by these items, B is measured by these items. We can directly measure A through these items. So this is a construct. Suppose if I'm not able to measure A through A1, A2, A3, A4, then we're saying A, B, C, leading to D. This I can measure through B1, B2, B3, right? C I can measure through C1, C2, 3. A is made up of E and F. And E1, E2, F1, F2. This A is now a latent variable. These are just the variables. B, C, D. These are variables or constructs. E and F are the dimensions of A. In fact, A is a latent variable. B1, B2, B3, C1, C2, C3, E1, F1, F2, F3, all these 1, 2, 3, whatever I have written, these are the items or the statements.
Ma'am, in this case, D is also a latent variable because D is not directly measurable as
No. Here we are saying it is this is a dependent variable. I have not talked about the types of variables. This is an independent variable. I have not talked about the types of variables. I have talked just about the variable. This is a variable. This is measured by some items. Let me say D1, D2, D3. This is not measured by, here I'm saying A is leading to D. B is leading to D. C is leading to D. I'm not saying that D is made up of A. No. Here I'm saying A is, understand this, ये theory है हमारी. Theory जो हम पढ़ रहे हैं वो ये है बस. Where we are saying A, B and C leads to D. Right? अब आपको मैं एक चीज और समझाने की कोशिश करती हूँ इसके लिए. Do you understand the independent, dependent, mediating, moderating variables? Please answer so that I can explain things accordingly.
yes, ma'am. Yes.
You understand all that, right? Iti, you understand, when I'm saying I'm testing a theory A, B, C leads to D, तो ये ऑलरेडी मेरे वेरिएबल्स हैं. इस केस में A, B and C are my IVs, independent variables. My D is my dependent variable. So this variable is dependent on A, B and C. It is not made up of A, B and C. You need to understand the meaning here.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? This is a theory which I'm saying. Now there could be a second case where A leads to B and B leads to C. There could be a case where A leads to C and B. Here, this is a case of mediation. This is a case of moderation. This is a simple case of IV leading to DV. IV leading to DV. Here we are saying A is a construct, B is a construct, C is a construct. B, अगर मैं ऐसे मार्क करके यहाँ पे अगर आप मॉडल बनाते हो ना तो उसमें इस तरह से आएगा. आइटम आपका हमेशा ऐसे प्रेजेंट होगा. अगर आप स्ट्रक्चरल इक्वेशन मॉडलिंग में जाओगे ऐसे बना होगा. तो ये आपको सिंपल कंस्ट्रक्ट है. अगर ये यहाँ पर भी सर्कल है और यहाँ भी सर्कल है और फिर इसके बाद ऐसे छोटे रेक्टेंगल्स बन रहे हैं, then this is a latent construct. C is made up of C1. C is made up of dimension C1, C2. And this is, ये further आपके items करेंगे. Items are represented by a small rectangle. Dimensions and constructs are represented by circles. Okay, whenever you make a model in a MOS, so you'll understand these things. So, abhi just try to don't get yourself, don't get confused with this. Just understand the difference between a construct and a latent construct. Then you try to understand what is an item, statement, dimensions. That's it. So that if I'm talking of the questionnaire and the types of the variables, you should understand that what I'm talking when I'm talking of the scales and how to fit in. One more thing which I would like to explain here is reflective. Now these constructs are reflective and formative in nature. Aditi, rectangle का मतलब है A leading to B leading to C. So A is not directly leading to C, but A is leading to C through B. So this becomes a case of a mediation. Right? Okay. Now let's understand reflective and formative constructs. Why it is important again? Because when you develop your questionnaire, then also these things matter. Reflect. Circle से जब कोई arrow बाहर निकल रहा है. I'll give you the examples to make you understand. Right? So we have this I, and this is I1, I2, I3, and I4. Formative. Formative का मतलब होता है इसको जब कोई फॉर्म कर रहा है. Right? So it could be I1, sorry, F1, F2, F3, F4. Now understand. Reflective construct का मतलब this item or this construct or this dimension or this factor, यहाँ से हमारे जो arrow है वो बाहर की तरफ निकल रहा है. It is reflecting. Can you see? It is reflecting. And here F1 is forming F1, F2 is forming F, F3 is also is forming F. These F1, F2, F3, F4, they together form F. Here we say that I1, I2, these are the consequences. I leads to I1, I leads to I2, I leads to I3, I leads to 4. So I Please understand, I affects the indicator. Indicators, statements, items. एक ही बात. I affects the indicators. Number 1 point. Number 2, items are interchangeable. Matlab, that is, if you delete one item, it does not affect I. It does not affect I, and the content validity still remains. मैं अभी एग्जाम्पल देके आपको समझाती हूँ. जब हम फॉर्मेटिव कंस्ट्रक्ट की बात करते हैं, हम कह रहे हैं कि F is made up of F1, F2, F3 and F4. Okay. So, मतलब, if I delete F1, this will affect my content validity. Will be affected. Because F1, F2, F3, F4 causes F. Right? For example, if I want to measure happiness index, there is a construct happiness index, और इसकी जो items हैं वो बहुत clear हैं. They say it is measured by social happiness, family happiness, and let's say friends. I'm just giving you an example. अगर मैं social इसमें से निकाल देती हूँ, तो family और friends से मैं F अकेला measure नहीं कर सकती. So we cannot delete an item from here when we make a formative construct. However, when we make a reflective construct, usually lower order constructs are reflective in nature. Let me give you an example here. Let's say, example हम ले लेते हैं यहाँ पर आपका customer commitment. Suppose you are a committed customer of a particular brand. You are a particularly you want to buy a product from Zara or maybe H&M or whatever, right? And you're a committed customer. So, as a committed customer, what is going to be your consequence here? Here it is a causes, here consequence. क्या cause होगा? You will still buy the product in spite of price increase, isn't it? Second will be your willingness to pay. Suppose if I delete this willingness to pay, your commitment to buy the product in different city or maybe whatever जो भी है, ये तो रहेगा ही रहेगा ना. अगर मैं ये हटा देती हूँ, ये तो रहेगा ही रहेगा. इस पे तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला. अगर वो मेरा स्टोर जो है सपोज चेंज हो जाती है लोकेशन, तो भी मेरी willingness to pay or willingness to buy that product is still there. However, the consequence may not be there. This consequence may not be there. यही होगा ज्यादा से ज्यादा. So that is why it does not affect the content validity. तभी हम ज्यादातर जितना रिसर्च में हम काम करते हैं, वो ज्यादातर हम रिफ्लेक्टिव कंस्ट्रक्ट पे करते हैं. इजी टू हैंडल, एमओएस में और एपीएलएस में दोनों में इजीली हैंडल हो जाता है. फॉर्मेटिव में हमें देखना पड़ता है कि कई बार हम जब आजकल जो आप रिसर्च देखते हो जो बहुत थोड़ा सा हाई लेवल की रिसर्च हो रही, वहां पे दे पीपल कंबाइन द मॉडल्स. दे अगर इफ दे आर बिल्डिंग सम मॉडल, तो वो इस कंस्ट्रक्ट को रिफ्लेक्टिव बना देते हैं, इसको फॉर्मेटिव भी बना सकते हैं. और इसको रिफ्लेक्टिव फॉर्मेटिव बना देते हैं. सो दे हैव अ डिफरेंट मॉडल. दे मे हैव अ रिफ्लेक्टिव, दे मे हैव अ रिफ्लेक्टिव फॉर्मेटिव मॉडल, they may have a formative model. So there are different types of models also which comes up, right? I hope it is clear. It is just a basic understanding of what I'm telling you. Questionnaire development के जो basic चीजें हैं जब आप बना रहे हो तो आपको पता होना चाहिए कि आपका construct किस तरीके का है. ठीक है? Any questions?
Yes, ma'am. Regarding that formative construct, those
Hmm.
are not statement, right? Or
These are statements. These are
they are
statements.
statement.
These
Okay.
are statements. These are not construct.
Okay.
Possibility है कि formative भी आगे dimensions का बना हो. Quite
Okay.
possible. मैंने simple example दिए जो statements हैं.
Mm-hmm.
ठीक है, वो जब बना होगा तो फिर वही सेकंड ऑर्डर पे आ जाएगा कि फर्स्ट थर्ड ऑर्डर पे जाता है. वो हमें डिपेंड करेगा वेरिएबल टू वेरिएबल. अभी आई हैव टेकन अ वेरी सिंपल एग्जांपल जस्ट टू मेक यू अंडरस्टैंड व्हेन यू आर मेकिंग अ क्वेश्चनर हाउ these things work. You should know that what type of construct you are dealing with. Is it a reflective construct or is it a formative construct? Right? Okay. Now let me take you to the scales. Now variables are of two types. I have explained you the variables, constructs and factors. I have told you variables हमारे reflective और formative भी हो सकते हैं. अब variables ऐसे भी होते हैं which can be measured, metric, measurable और non-metric in nature, right? अब इनको हम जब कहते हैं कि measurable हैं तो वो कैसे measure करेंगे हम? जैसे हम measure करेंगे वो हम measure करते हैं through scales. Right? My point here is that variable can be a metric, it can be non-metric. Okay? So when I say metric, means variable is quantitative in nature. When I say variable is non-metric, it is qualitative in nature. Okay? So we're talking of the variables which can be measured. And by the scale by which we measure these variables are of four different types: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Qualitative is a non-metric variable. I told you variables, metric and non-metric variable. Non-metric variable जो होता है वो qualitative in nature होता है, also called as a categorical variable. So the example could be gender, male or female. You cannot measure how much male it is, how much female it is, marital status, how much you are married, how much you are unmarried. No, qualitative variables, right? Which are non-measurable. So it's simple. You will say that you are married or you're not married. You will simply say that you are a male and you are female, right? So when we talk of a quantitative variables, these are known as metric variable. Now these metric variables are again of two types, which could be discrete and continuous. When you talk about the frequencies, when you talk of the counting processes, for example, number of patients in the wards, number of nurses, number of hospitals in cities. So what are you saying here? Talking of the frequencies, simple. Count. Then it is that variable is discrete in nature. Quantitative variables are numerical. However, their measurement can be different. Discrete and continuous. Continuous कैसा होगा? जब हम उसको continuously measure करें. Age, 40 years, 2 months. Weight, 31.2, 31.5, 35.6. Right? Temperature, 0, 20, 30, 40. Pressure, pH level. All these are continuous variables. Right? And when data is taken from some measuring processes. Okay? Now, this level of measurement was given by Stanley Smith Stevens, and he introduced these 4 scales. Now, measurement means whenever we assign numbers to any of the variables, we call it as we are measuring that variable. That number could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Somebody asked me like its scale क्या है? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 आप numbers दे रहे हो. Measurement है, लेकिन हम उसकी बात करेंगे कि whether it is ordinal or interval और क्या है, वो हम अभी उसकी बात करेंगे. So we must have a rule for assigning a number to our observation. You can't assign centigrade to an age, right? So you have a rule. Temperature will be measured in centigrades of Fahrenheit. Weight आपको kgs, kilograms, grams, tons कैसे measure करना है? Distance आपको you can meters, kilometers. You cannot weight it in grams. So you have certain rules for assigning a number and a unit to an observation. We don't measure object. We don't measure object. अगर मैं आपको बोलती हूँ measure the product, you will not measure the product. What will you measure? You will measure the characteristics of a product. What would that be? Length, height, weight, right? That is going to be how you're going to measure a product. When we say that we are doing a study on laptops, we don't mean that we're measuring laptop. We are measuring the characteristics of a product. And what is the product here? Your laptop, right? Mobile, characteristics of a mobile. We don't measure the object. Okay? So when you can measure what you are speaking about and you express it in numbers, you know something about it. But when you cannot express it in numbers, your knowledge is meager and unsatisfactory. So अदरवाइज जब हम ये क्वेश्चनर बना रहे हैं, अगर हम उसमें वेरिएबल को मेजर नहीं कर पा रहे, तो देयर इज नो नीड, यू कांट गो अहेड विद इट. सो व्हाटएवर यू आर मेकिंग, वेदर इट इज अ क्वालिटेटिव क्वेश्चनर, वेदर इट इज अ क्वांटिटेटिव क्वेश्चनर. क्वालिटेटिव में हम कैसे मेजर करते हैं? वी मेजर इट थ्रू फ्रीक्वेंसीज. एंड हाउ डू वी टेक द फ्रीक्वेंसीज? वर्ड काउंट. हमें कैसे पता चलता है कि हैप्पीनेस में लोग फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी को बहुत इंपॉर्टेंस दे रहे हैं? When people talk about flexibility a lot in the interview, so what is the frequency of that word, flexibility? What is the frequency of the term leadership behavior? Is the frequency of leadership behavior or the frequency of flexibility is higher? If the frequency of flexibility is higher, that means flexibility has more value to happiness as compared to leadership behavior. That is how we measure in qualitative, right? We do the content analysis and we measure. So measurement is important. Just on the basis of the interviews and the open-ended answers, we cannot predict anything. We can make certain things, but again, on what basis? So we try to measure the word frequency in qualitative, right? But in quant, what do? It is measurable. The variable, whatever we're taking, is metric in nature. It is metric in nature and it is measurable, right? And we measure it through what? We measure it through different scales. And these scales are of 4 types: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Okay. So now we talk about the first scale, which is called as a nominal scale. Nominal scale is the lowest level of measurement. Nominal scale classifies into that have no quantitative ordering. For example, if I ask you cricket team, you have those jersey numbers, right? Nominal scale, J1, J2, J3, J4. Your name, nominal scale. Religion, designation, gender, right? It may have categories. Gender has 2 categories, so it becomes a dichotomous. Religion, many religions. So, multi, right? Designation could be many. जिसकी सिर्फ 2 categories होंगी, that is known as a dichotomous scale or categorical scale or a nominal scale. Please understand. In a nominal scale, when we just have nominal scale basically has categories. Married. आपने marital status measure किया. I'll ask you, suppose marital status आपने question में बनाया and you make married, unmarried, divorcee, और कोई category नहीं है, यही है हमारी 3 categories. Measure, married, unmarried, divorcee. So 3 categories. How are you measuring? Through these categories. Gender, suppose if you're only measuring through two, we can have more also, male and female. So when you're having just two categories, what do you call it? Dichotomous. Dichotomous is also categorical scale. However, जब दो categories हैं तो हम उसको dichotomous कहते हैं. जब दो से ज़्यादा हैं तो हम उसको multichotomous और polytomous ये बोलते हैं. ठीक है? Okay. Now, what are the basic features of a nominal scale? It is the lowest level of measurement. They cannot be ordered. How do we make differentiation between a nominal scale and an ordinal scale? It is always said that nominal, ordinal, interval and ratio. ये जो order of scaling है, ये सबसे lowest level है और ये सबसे highest level of measurement है. जब हम कोई भी चीज नॉमिनल पे मेजर करते हैं तो मतलब हमने सबसे लोएस्ट लेवल पे उसको मेजर किया, राइट? हायरार्की है ये. उसके बाद अगर हम उसको एक और नए लेवल पे लेके जाते हैं, देन इट इज एन ऑर्डर. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, पहले हम नॉमिनल की बात करते हैं. Nominal categories are not hierarchical. We cannot say that male or female is superior. We cannot say that a person from this particular religion is more superior to a person who belongs to a different religion, right? So it is just a category. Whichever category you fall into, you cannot say whichever category is superior or better. Okay? So, and we cannot perform any mathematical, arithmetic or logical operations. मतलब ना तो हम इसमें plus, minus, divide, multiply ये सब नहीं कर सकते. Neither we can say less than, greater than or equal to. We cannot perform any of these operations in the nominal scale. आप जेंडर में क्या बता सकते हो डेटा में? सिर्फ यही बता सकते हो कितने मेल हैं कितने फीमेल हैं, करेक्ट? एजुकेशन में आपकी 3 कैटेगरीज, 4 कैटेगरीज, 5 कैटेगरीज हैं. आप क्या बता सकते हो? कितने लोग ग्रेजुएट हैं, कितने अंडर ग्रेजुएट हैं, कितने पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट हैं, कितने डॉक्टरेट. सो व्हाट आर यू गिविंग इन द नॉमिनल स्केल? ओनली, right? Only frequencies can be calculated, nothing else. So when you make the first section of your questionnaire, where you ask the gender, आजकल लोग we also may take this demographic information towards the end of the questionnaire also. So it is recommended that you take the demographic information towards the end of the questionnaire, and you start with some ordinal scale questionnaire in the beginning, right? So पहले हम लोग nominal scale पूछते. You may ask 1 or 2 in the beginning just to make them little easy so that they feel little easy. So at once you will ask you the questions about the variables. They might not be very comfortable. So you make them a little easy by asking some easy questions, which are just snap away, right? So that is one thing. Second, I've talked about the dichotomous and polytomous. So are you employed in a managerial capacity at the organization? You just have 2 categories, yes and no, right? These, apart from asking the gender, your age, your income, your designation, you can ask certain other questions. Are you employed in managerial capacity? Would you consider continuing with this organization or not? How long you've been working with this organization? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, some similar questions. And other polytomous could be which OTT platforms do you watch? So the answers could be 1 also, 2 also, 3 also. So when you make such type of questions in the questionnaire, so when you ask the questions on the categorical scale, you should make radio buttons, the Google form, whenever you do. And when you make questions like where the answers are multiple, because we watch all the channels, right? So you can say, I will tick on all, right? So when I'm ticking on all, so you should make the check boxes. Right? So dichotomous and polytomous questions. Open questions that ask for text are nominal. हम जितने भी open questions पूछते हैं, somebody was working on a mixed method study where we talk of qualitative questions that certain aspects about their life we ask about them. So those questions are considered to be nominal in nature, right? Open-ended questions. Next is ordinal scale. Now, what is an ordinal scale? Ordinal scale of measurement also categorize cases. Now, for example, ऑर्डर नल से आप याद रखो ऑर्डर, जब भी आप मेजर कर रहे हो कोई चीज को तो हम इस तरीके से मेजर कर रहे हैं कि देयर इज एन ऑर्डर। Checkbox questions. Yes, I'll talk about it. That analysis will, I'll talk about it. Let me first finish, then I'll tell you how that analysis is little different. But I have that slide with me, so I'll let you know. Ordinal scale means order when you're doing it, following an order. So what do you do? For example, you have education. 10th, 12th, graduation, post-graduation. What is an order? आप 12th 10th के बाद ही करते हो, ग्रेजुएशन इसके बाद करते हो, इसके बाद करते हो. So you know that the person who is a graduate is better qualified than a 12th pass. A person who is a postgraduate is better qualified than a graduate. So what is the order? And you know that this is better than that. But how much better, you can't predict. Right? Because we don't know what is the distance between 10th and 12th in terms of measurement. We don't know the distance between 12th and graduate. We don't know the distance, but what we know is that order. 12th 10th के बाद ही होती है, graduation 12th के बाद ही होती है. So we assume that graduation, a person who is a graduate is considered to be a better qualified than any 12th pass. Right? So here what we can do is we can perform logical operations. So what does that mean? Arithmetic operations हमारे कौन से होते हैं? Plus, divide, multiply, plus, minus. All these are arithmetic operations. Logical operations कौन से होते हैं? Less than, greater than, equal to. हम यही कह सकते हैं this person is less qualified than that. This person is equally qualified as that. So that is the only thing what we can measure. So whenever you're making your questionnaire, be very careful what are you trying to measure. Okay? Categories किसकी बनानी है, किसकी नहीं बनानी, और कैसे बनानी, right? Now, ranking involves ordering cases in quantitative sense, such as from lowest to highest, or from less to more, or from weakest to strongest, and are particularly common when measuring attitude or satisfaction in opinion surveys. अब ordinal जो questions है ना, here you need to have a little bit of understanding that आप लोग Likert scale बहुत very common है ना, 5 point पे बनाना है, 7 point पे बनाना है, but and then you ask that Likert scale ordinal scale है या हमारा interval scale है. Ordinal में भी हम 1 to 5 पे measure करते हैं और interval में भी हम 1 to 5 पे measure कर सकते हैं. Now let's see how. और कब हम उसको बोलते हैं कि हमारा वो इसमें measurement में हम interval scale पे जा रहे हैं. When it is called an ordinal and when it is called an interval, that is what we need to see कि कब हम Likert को ordinal बोलते हैं और कब हम Likert को interval बोलते हैं. That is what you really need to understand when you are working on a question, right? So assume that in trying to measure age, I settle on the following scale. I have this scale: 18 years or less, 19 to 65 years or over. Scale क्या है? 18 years or less, 19 to 65 years and over 65 years. 18 years or less is equal to 18 years or less 23. मतलब 23 से कम. 2 में मैंने उसको I have given the weightage of 2 when it is 19 to 65 years. Right? So 3 over 65 years. So anybody who's 90 or over 65 years, उसको हमने weightage दिया 3. Ordinal scale. This is one example. Second example, suppose a car buyer is asked to provide preference ranking for colors: white, black, red, and blue. So then also preference rank. जब हम preference of a color पूछते हैं, preference of restaurant पूछते हैं, preference of let's say vacation पूछते हैं, preference of a tourist spot पूछते हैं. All these type of questions are made on an ordinal scale, right? Let's see how we build that. Suppose a car buyer is asked to provide preference ranking for colors. These are the preference buyer's state of mind. I simply love black. I strongly like white. Red looks very sporty. I hate blue. So preference ranking. Black को first preference, white को second, red को 3, fourth को blue. Scenario B, on a scale of 0 to 3, 0, 1 to 3, it is still an ordinal scale. Preference की बात हो रही है ना? Order की बात हो रही है. Black color is preferred over what? This person has not preferred black. This person has preferred white. This person has preferred black. So then also that scale is also known as ordinal scale. Okay. Every scale point has a particular meaning with respect to a scenario. Each number on the scale is different from the other and all of them can be rank ordered. जब भी हम रैंकिंग की बात करते हैं, जब भी हम ऑर्डर की बात करते हैं, तो हम क्या यूज करते हैं? ऑर्डिनल स्केल. नाउ रैंक इन अ क्लास. ऑर्डर बाय जिसके मार्क्स सबसे ज्यादा है. रैंक क्या है? फर्स्ट. 80 के सेकंड, 70 के थर्ड. रैंक इन अ क्लास, राइट? रैंकिंग, ऑर्डर, ऑर्डिनल. Ranking in exam or first, second or third does not mean that first is twice as good as second or 3 times as good as third. We can't predict that. We can see the difference because we remember कौन से operations हम कर सकते हैं? Plus minus. Sorry, greater lesser. है ना? तो हम ये तो बता ही रहे हैं यहाँ से कितने मार्क्स ज्यादा हैं, किसके इससे ज्यादा हैं, तभी ये यहाँ पर है. यहाँ पे हम डिफरेंस भी बता सकते हैं प्लस माइनस का. बट वी कांट say here that first, second or third does not mean that this person is twice as good as this, or this person is as second times as good as the third one, 3 times as good as the third one. But we can have an order, right? Gold, silver, bronze medal. Again, how do you feel today on a scale of 5? Happiness को measure कर रहे हो on a scale of 5. Likert scale से measure कर रहे हो, but ordinal scale. Satisfaction measure कर रहे हो. How satisfied are you with the service? You fill that feedback form. Is it an interval scale or is it an ordinal scale? It's an ordinal scale. It is an order. Very unsatisfied, somewhat this. This is an order. This is not an interval scale. Why? Because you cannot perform any arithmetic operations on this. वो ये नहीं बता रहा कि जो very unsatisfied है वो कितना different, कितने से unsatisfied और कितना है उनमें difference. Difference आप नहीं बता सकते. आपके पास scale है, बस ये बता सकते हो कि हाँ very unsatisfied है और इतने लोग very unsatisfied हैं यहाँ से. Right? Okay. Another example. The most important. Rank the following attributes while choosing a tourist place. Suppose if you want to go for any tourist destination for a vacation, how would you rank it? Suppose if I have to go for a vacation, I will first give preference to weather. Then I will look at the cost. I will look at the cost of a hotel, number of location site and distance. तो मैं 5 दूंगी. But for a respondent 2, maybe it is different. Somebody will give this rank 1, this 3, this 2, this 5, and this 4. Another respondent will give this rank 2, 3, 4, 1, 5. Another respondent will give this. So this is also an ordinal scale, right? If you are measuring the statements, now you look at this. कई बार क्या करते हैं हम लोग क्वेश्चनर में, हम लोग suppose if I'm working on let's say just random statements कुछ पूछ रहे हैं and they have been asked on a scale of 1 to 5. Look at the statements. I'm feeling happy today. I'm satisfied with the purchase. I'm enjoying the weather. Are these items related to each other? No, these are not related. These are not related, right? But we are measuring it on a scale of 1 to 5, which is a Likert scale, but it is an ordinal scale. It is not an interval scale. Okay, it is an ordinal scale. If the items are associated with each other, एक ही प्रोडक्ट के बारे में कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स की बात हो रही है, तब हम उसको बोलते हैं कि that is an interval scale. I'm going to talk about it. Next scale is interval scales. They have equal and definite interval between two measurements. For example, temperature is a very common example which we normally quote, right? So if you look at it, I have, I think, temperature, time, all these are, let me just, interval scales have an arbitrary minimum and maximum. Example, temperature. If I say temperature 0 hai, pressure 0 hai, does that mean that there is no pressure or there is no temperature? No. So the 0 that exists in the interval scale is assumed 0, arbitrary 0, right? The limiting factor for interval scale begins at 1 or 0 and represents one extreme of the construct we are measuring, and are the ratings that have both order. We cannot calculate the ratio. Here again, you cannot perform an operation of division and multiplication. However, you can talk about plus and minus. नॉमिनल में आप कुछ भी नहीं कर सकते थे, ओनली फ्रीक्वेंसीज. ऑर्डर में आप ये बता सकते हो लेस देन और ग्रेटर देन और इक्वल टू. इंटरवल में आप प्लस और माइनस कर सकते हो, और रेशो में आप सारे कुछ सभी कुछ कर सकते हो, डिविजन, मल्टीप्लाई, प्लस, माइनस, all mathematical operations, right? Here data can be divided, data cannot be divided but can be subtracted or added. Interval data can be discrete with whole numbers and continuous also. For example, let me take you an example. For example, जब हम सबसे पहले हम एक measure करते हैं age. अब age को, how should we measure it? We can measure it in different forms. We can measure it as 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50. One way of measuring. Second is, you simply ask age and person will say 30, 40, 45, 50, whatever. So what is this scale? This is a ratio scale. And which is this scale? We have made categories. So what is it? And there is an order, or there are categories. Here it becomes a nominal scale. But order बनाना हो तो हम इसको young, old उसमें भी बोल सकते हैं, तो it will become a ordinal scale. ये इससे ज्यादा यंग है 20 to 30 वाले, और अगर हम उसमें बना रहे हैं यंग, ओल्ड और मीडियम, वट एवर एवरेज एज, तो भी हम कहना चाह रहे हैं. But it is always good to measure age as a ratio scale, direct उसका discrete or continuous. Somebody will say 40.2, 35, 40 number. So age should always be measured as a ratio scale. Okay. Interval measurement allows you to calculate both the mean and the median of variables.
Ma'am, can you give me an example of latent plus an interval scale? An example for that?
Latent is a construct.
Sorry. No. Like it.
Like it मैंने आपको वही समझाया था यहाँ पर, if you remember.
Like it as well as the interval. Like you have given example for the ordinal and like it, the mixture of both. And similarly, I want an example for like it and the interval.
Like it, scale and interval. अब interval में कैसे होगा? जब हम किसी, suppose I'm measuring the characteristics of, let's say, laptop, right? I like the laptop which has, let's say, I like the laptop which has Windows. I like laptop if the size is less than 14 inches. I like to buy a laptop which has a storage space of 526 MB space. I like to buy a preloaded laptop with all softwares. तो मैंने क्या किया यहाँ पर? I am talking of a single thing. All my items are associated with each other, isn't it? आई एम टॉकिंग ऑफ अ लैपटॉप एंड लैपटॉप की ही कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स की बात कर रही हूँ. And I measure them on a scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when I measure them on a scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have all associated items, then it is an interval scale, and I have measured it on like. But if I have the way I have shown here in this ordinal scale, items are not related to each other, but they are being measured on a 5-point scale. Is that clear?
Yes,
जब
ma'am.
हम
Thank you.
है ना एसोसिएटेड चीजों की जब हम बात करते हैं एक ही चीज की, जैसे आपने हैप्पीनेस की बात की, तो अब आई फील हैप्पी व्हेन माय फैमिली इज अराउंड, आई फील हैप्पी व्हेन माय चिल्ड्रन आर अराउंड, आई फील हैप्पी व्हेन आई गो आउट फॉर अ डिनर. सो आई एम टॉकिंग ऑफ वन कॉन्सेप्ट व्हिच इज हैप्पीनेस, राइट? सो देन इट इज बिकॉज तब मेरे जो ऑपरेशंस हैं वो डिफरेंट टाइम, राइट? आई कैन कैलकुलेट द मीन हेयर, और मैं मीन जो निकाल रही हूँ वो एक ही चीज का निकाल रही हूँ, हैप्पीनेस का. इजंट इट? और मैं
Yes.
हैप्पीनेस को कंपेयर कर रही हूँ अगर सेटिस्फैक्शन से और मैं सैडनेस से, तो आई कैन से दैट माय हैप्पीनेस स्कोर इज मोर देन सैडनेस, कांट आई? बट अगर मेरी स्टेटमेंट्स ही अलग अलग हैं तो मैं क्या उसका मीन निकाल पाऊंगी? एक ही स्टेटमेंट है, उसका क्या मीन निकलेगा? कुछ भी नहीं निकलेगा ना. तभी तो हम जब इसको मेजर करते हैं आइटम्स का, तो हम इसका कंस्ट्रक्ट का मीन कैसे निकाल लेते हैं? आर यू गेटिंग माई पॉइंट और नॉट?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, it means that when the items are associated, then it comes under the interval. Otherwise, it came. Yes.
अगर आप सिंगल सिंगल का किसी सिंपल सी कोई चीज का 1 to 5 पे उससे बात कर रहे हो, रिस्पॉन्डेंट से बात कर रहे हो, इट इज एन ऑर्डिनल स्केल, बट यू हैव टेकन इट मेजरमेंट ऑन अ लिकट स्केल, सिंपल. बट जब आप एसोसिएटेड चीजों के 8-10 क्वेश्चंस आपने पूछ ले, तो आप मीन निकाल पाओगे ना उसका, है ना? जब मैंने आपको ऑपरेशंस बताए कौन कौन से कर सकते हैं, तो हम कौन से कर रहे हैं कौन से नहीं कर रहे हैं, सो वी कैन सिंपली परफॉर्म प्लस माइनस, right?
Yes,
But we
ma'am.
can't still operate, we can't still work on that, what do you call, um, division and multiplication. We can't. ठीक है, उसके लिए हमें रेशियो स्केल पे मेजरमेंट करना पड़ता है. इसीलिए हम इसको कंप्यूट वेरिएबल करके हम इसका एक स्कोर निकालते हैं, जो कि हमारा फिर हम उसको रेशियो स्केल पे लेकर आते हैं. इफ यू नो हाउ टू वर्क ऑन एसपीएसएस अ बिट, तो हम इसका लेटेंट स्कोर निकाल लेते हैं. अगर हमारी डायमेंशन हैं तो हम लेटेंट स्कोर निकाल लेते हैं, नहीं तो हम इसका एक कंप्यूट कर लेते हैं वेरिएबल और एक सिंगल नंबर पे लेकर आते हैं, इतना एवरेज निकाल लेते हैं जो सबने कहा. तो देन वी ब्रिंग ट्राई टू ब्रिंग इट ऑन.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, if suppose we are ranking of a product attributes like price, quality, variety. So if it is specific, like say sports shoes, Nike brand, and if I want customer to rank with respect to price, quality, variety, then it will be considered ordinal, or
Correct.
that is one.
Ordinal.
And if ordinal. And if suppose general question I'm asking means I have not specified the brands like Nike or Reebok or other thing, Puma or this. Only customer has to, whenever he sees any brand, what qualities he are ranking in price, quality, variety. So in this question, what it will come when it is general and not specific.
So are you giving him an option to check as many options
Yes.
as he can?
Option meaning price, quality, variety, and they have to rank. But on that question, I have not asked specifically whether it is of Nike or this, only of sports
Again
shoes.
ordinal. Again ordinal.
Ordinal.
Again ordinal. I'll tell you how to answer these. I mean, how to calculate these also. So maybe today or maybe tomorrow, but I will answer this. इसकी calculations कैसे करते हैं वो भी मैं बताऊंगी आपको. Okay, it is an ordinal. Both are ordinal. Okay.
So,
Is that clear, Pranav?
ma'am,
Yeah.
one sec.
Thank you, ma'am.
If in a theory, if we are testing the theory and there are variables and we have a statements, okay. So in that case, there will be a Likert scale, that is the interval scale, because
अभी मैंने आपको क्या समझाया, यही समझाया कि जब आप एसोसिएटेड आइटम्स का स्केल
associated
बना रहे हो,
items, yes,
तो वो
yes,
इंटरवल स्केल हुआ ना. जब हमारे
interval scale.
आइटम्स रिलेटेड ही नहीं है एक दूसरे से, तो आप उसका कुछ कर नहीं सकते ना. इट्स अ सिंगल आइटम, व्हाट वुड यू डू विद इट, हाउ वुड यू मेजर? बहुत लॉजिकल कॉन्सेप्ट है. आप इसको अगर डोंट मेक इट अ डिफिकल्ट कॉन्सेप्ट, जस्ट थिंक ऑफ अ लॉजिक. एक सिंगल स्टेटमेंट है, उसको 1 2 3 4 5 पे आपने मेजर कर दिया, उसका कुछ कर सकते हो?
नहीं,
सोच के देखो, नहीं कर सकते ना,
नहीं कर सकते.
सिंपल. So you got your answer,
Yes.
right? Time of day is also, we cannot say 10 a.m. is twice as long as 5 a.m. है ना, ये भी इंटरवल्स के लिए. जब हम डिस्टेंस और डिफरेंस नहीं बता सकते हैं कहीं पे भी कि तो इट इज एन इंटरवल स्केल. बट हम डिफरेंस जब बता पाते हैं देन इट इज कॉल्ड एज अ रेशियो स्केल, राइट? नाउ लेट्स look here. Now you will answer this question. Is this a Likert? Which one of these is interval and which is an ordinal? दोनों 5 पॉइंट पे हैं.
First one is ordinal and second one is interval.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, first ordinal, second interval. All right.
Both are ordinal, ma'am.
Okay, both are ordinal. Okay. सर आपको कैसे लगा कि दोनों ऑर्डिनल हैं?
You have a 5-point scale and objects are there. There is no ratios involved here.
No. First one is ordinal and the second one is interval. See, this is talking about satisfaction about laptop. And screen size, image, audio, graphics are all associated with laptop. As I explained, when all your items are associated with one thing, it is an interval scale. अब यहाँ पर टीवी का कोई रिलेशन नहीं है मोबाइल से, कार का कोई रिलेशन नहीं है, आयरन बॉक्स, इन चारों का कोई रिलेशन नहीं है एक दूसरे से. सो व्हेन these are not associated with each other. Suppose if I ask you, rank the products on a scale of 1 to 5 as per your usage or requirement, and I give you 10 electronic products, जैसे यहाँ पर दिया, तो क्या मैं उसमें कुछ ये बता सकती हूँ कि प्लस माइनस करके कि इसका ज्यादा है या उसका कम है? मैं सिर्फ ये बता सकती हूँ कि आपकी प्रेफरेंस किसको ज्यादा है. बट हेयर इफ यू मेजर, आई विल बी एबल टू गिव यू द सेटिस्फैक्शन. मीन मैं आपको एक सेटिस्फैक्शन का दे पाऊंगी. सो व्हेन यू आर एबल टू कैलकुलेट द मीन, दैट मीन्स that particular scale, that particular thing, whatever you're measuring, that is measured on an interval scale. When the items are simple है, when the items are associated in a particular, for a particular variable you're measuring, it becomes an interval. जब items जो आपके हैं, जैसे आपने rank का बनाया, आपने preference का बनाया, that comes on an ordinal scale. वो आप 1 to 5 पे भी पूछ सकते हो, but that doesn't mean कि हर चीज आप Likert पे पूछोगे तो वो interval हो जाएगी. No, association है कि नहीं, वहां से आप predict करो, right? So good try. So levels of measurement for ratio scale: हाइट, एज, फैमिली, मंथली इनकम. इसका आपको डायरेक्ट नंबर मिलेगा. हाइट का 5.6 इंचेस, सॉरी फीट, 23. इनकम 1 लाख. रेनफॉल कितने mm. सो नंबर, यू गेटिंग अ डायरेक्ट नंबर. So you can calculate the multiply, you can divide, you can plus, you can minus, right? All arithmetic operations. The purchasing power is measured in terms of money. If it is measured in terms of money, it is on a ratio scale. Purchasing power. What is your purchasing power? $20, 25, whatever. You're measuring it in terms of money. It is a ratio scale, right? What are the features of ratio scale? Highest level of measurement, fixed or absolute zero, most precise, order, exact values, all mathematical operations can be carried out. These are the 4 levels of measurement. Categories, rank orders. If you look at the nominal, here, only categorization, gender, colors, आप यही बता सकते हो. Ordinal में you can have a ranking function. Interval में you can have both ranking as well as equal spacing. However, in ratio you can have 2 0 also. So this is the basic difference, and the examples are also given. So this is what we have been discussing so far. And just give yourself 2 minutes on this slide just to understand and whatever I have taught so far. Again, you can just spend 1 or 2 minutes here. Okay. Now, listen. This also I have explained. This I will take it up tomorrow. We'll start it from how to basically answer such type of questions, the ranking ones. This I'll take up tomorrow. Both, somebody had asked me these questions also, but I'll take it up tomorrow for some reason. Yes. Or maybe I'll just take 5 more minutes. If you guys are okay with it, I can take 5 more minutes and I'll finish it off. Purnima, can I take?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just take 5 minutes. Finish. Okay. So now here, the
Any
question that
questions?
Ma'am, do we learn question development as well in tomorrow's session? How to develop
yes,
a question, like
it's
framing
a
of
part of
question?
the questionnaire development only. So I have introduced the scales to you. Now, how to develop the questionnaire is how to basically uh, develop the scales. मतलब इसका is we do it through EFA, exploratory factor analysis. So I'll show you few papers जहाँ से आप item extract करोगे और कैसे उसको बनाओगे. That I'll start the session from tomorrow. First, you need to understand the basics of the questionnaire. आपको measure कैसे करना है उसको. That is the basic thing which you need to understand. So I've covered today that. So tomorrow I will be talking about how to extract the items from there, adapted and adopted questionnaire. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow.
And ma'am, framing of questions was also included in that.
Yes, framing of questions. So we'll talk of both adopted and adapted both. So I'll talk about it tomorrow,
Yes, ma'am.
not today. है ना, because that is again a different concept. आज मैंने आपको सिर्फ ये बताया कि हम measure कैसे करते हैं, scales क्या होते हैं, which is important. क्योंकि क्वेश्चन तो आपको मिल जाएगा, बट अब उसको ऑर्डिनल में बनाना है या इंटरवल में बनाना है, ये आपको पता होना चाहिए.
Answer.
Ma'am, I had one doubt, ma'am. You had
Yeah.
put up an example of a car with the colors. In that, the statement is by the person or the respondent writes those statements, because it's so confusing. The statements look quite confusing. I just wanted one clarification on that.
Just a minute, which slide? Go back to my slide.
एक कार के कलर के बारे में था, व्हाइट, ब्लैक और रेड. वो गया मैम. I think the this one has gone. It comes in the this one in.
ये वाला ना? हाँ.
ये वाला. Yeah, I simply love black. I strongly like white too. Red looks very sporty. This is a sentence which will be put by the questionnaire person.
Yeah.
Is it's confusing to tell such kind of this one? I mean, I'm just asking it because
Yes.
we are not able to, I mean, classify what is the liking of the person, right?
Buyer's state of mind. Colors का preference पूछना है. He should have actually written black, white, red, blue.
Yeah, that's
Simple.
it, right, ma'am?
That would have been better. But I have just taken an example from an internet, so it was written. I've just copied pasted.
Okay,
However,
okay,
if you have to make your own, you will only simply buyer state of mind for towards the color. You will simply write the colors. You
Okay.
have to make the questionnaire in such a way that it has to be very, very reader friendly. है ना, उसको उसके लिए बनाना है, अपने लिए नहीं बनाना कि लैंग्वेज बहुत अच्छी लग रही है तो बना दो ऐसे.
हाँ. इसमें थोड़ा थोड़ा कंफ्यूजिंग हो जाएगा ना मैम, इसलिए मुझे
Yes.
लगा हम लोग ऐसे लिखेंगे
You're
तो
right. You're
करेक्ट.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
Thank you.
talk about how the framing of the question items will be done. So that I'll be talking about it tomorrow.
Okay, ma'am.
है ना, कहाँ से हम एक्सट्रैक्ट करते हैं आइटम्स, कैसे करते हैं, और उसका लैंग्वेज क्या होता है, मतलब दैट आई एम गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट. सो दैट्स गोइंग टू बी इन हाफ एन आवर, एंड देन विल टॉक अबाउट एक्सप्लोरेटरी फैक्टर एनालिसिस, दैट विल टेक अनदर 1 hour or so, and towards the end we
मैम
can have some questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
मैम अगर पहले से कोई क्वेश्चनर बना हुआ है रिलेटेड टू माय स्टडी और ऑब्जेक्टिव से, तो उस क्वेश्चनर को मैं अपनी स्टडी में उठा सकता हूँ क्या? क्वेश्चनर
बिल्कुल
को
उठा सकते हो, बिल्कुल.
तो
अभी तो
मैम
मैंने
उसमें
उस चीज की बात नहीं की. दैट इज, अगर कोई क्वेश्चनर ऑलरेडी अवेलेबल है, सी व्हाट हैपेंस इज, व्हेन यू मेक अ क्वेश्चनर, हमारे पास दो सिनारियोज होते हैं, अडॉप्टेड एंड अडैप्टेड. सपोज इफ यू आर मेकिंग, व्हाट इज योर टॉपिक,
हेलो
what is your topic of research, what is the
ऐसा टॉपिक
what is your topic of research?
an analytical study of growth and challenges of MSMEs, a case study of good district.
Come again, growth of what?
Growth and challenges of MSMEs, a case study of good district.
And what are the factors?
Wait a minute.
Just give
Ma'am,
me one factor or two factors randomly, कुछ भी बता दो.
Access to finance.
Please mute. Access to finance and
Finance and related to government schemes and promotions and emerging issues, trends of MSMEs.
Okay, that's it. Now, so when you are looking at any paper, so maybe you may have a direct questionnaire questions. Here, when I say questions, suppose this is my variable. Here, the variable is access to finance. Now, what do I have to do? I have to make items for this, correct? So there could be items like F1, F2, F3, F4, and somebody has already measured access to finance, and already this is a established scale of access to finance. So I can straight away take that scale here and use it. When I use the same scale which has been used previously in many studies, we call it as an adopted scale. What do we call it? Adopted scale.
Okay.
However, suppose if you, there is some, suppose you are doing it in your, what is your context? Your context is MSME, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you are taking a questionnaire of access to finance for a consumer. Let's say retailer की आप बात कर रहे हो.
Okay.
Right? तो context change हो गया ना?
Okay.
Context था वो retailer के लिए, as a consumer, मतलब as an individual, for आपको access to finance for you.
जी.
And access to finance for MSc. Context क्या है? Change हो गया?
जी जी.
But main variable तो same रहा, access to finance.
No.
तो आप क्वेश्चनर जब यहाँ पे जो आइटम्स लिखे हैं F1, F2, F3 में, वो भी आप चेंज करोगे ना यहाँ पे कॉन्टेक्स्ट. बैंक्स गिव्स लोन इजीली टू MSMEs, ऐसे लिखोगे ना. बैंक्स गिव लोन्स ऑन हायर इंटरेस्ट रेट टू MSMEs. तो व्हाट हैव यू डन? अगर वो जो आपने स्केल उठाया है वो रिटेलर का था, लेकिन आपने अब उसका कॉन्टेक्स्ट चेंज कर दिया, देन इट विल बिकम एन अडेप्टेड स्केल. लेकिन अगर आपने जो स्केल उठाया है वो MSME की स्टडीज का ही उठाया है, एग्जैक्टली सेम लैंग्वेज, एग्जैक्टली सेम आइटम्स अगर आप ले रहे हो, देन इट इज एन अडॉप्टेड स्केल.
Okay.
Is it clear? Right? So whenever you take a scale from any study and you use it the way the person who has created that scale in the original manner, it is known as an adopted scale. However, if you bring some changes in the statements,
मैं इस वैलिडिटी और रिलायबिलिटी किसमें चेक करना पड़ेगा इसमें?
वो कल बात करेंगे, रिलायबिलिटी. अभी हम मतलब one by one, let's go one by one. ठीक है,
ओके मैम,
समझ आ गया?
ओके, ठीक है।
है ना?
Ma'am,
कल, हाँ जी,
Okay, ma'am.
can we have a adopted and adapted both in the questionnaire?
yes, you can.
Ma'am, excuse me. I have a question whether we can use ChatGPT for these constructs. I mean, for each variable, the items. Can we use them and then match it with LR and
No.
use them?
Honestly speaking, sir, ChatGPT is not reliable for actually looking at the items. And most of the times, whatever the references it gives you, you read, or if it gives you, then you please go back and check if you are
Okay.
trying to do that. That is my suggestion. It's not that you cannot do it, but I'm not sure the kind of referencing and the kind of scale it is going to fetch you is reliable or not. That you have to check it manually again, one by one reference
With the LR.
with LR. But again, one point, ChatGPT is only updated, I think, till 2021, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
You will not have that latest things.
They also have one special feature for research scholars in ChatGPT.
Yes, academic ChatGPT, right?
Hanji. We can cross-check. That is better.
Yes, it is
That
better
can-
that you cross-check, because AI tools, I recommend using them only to increase the productivity and efficiency to save the time, right? But then again, you have to cross-check everything,
Cross-check with
particularly
paper.
the references it gives you.
Yes.
Because otherwise AI plagiarism में जाएगा, आप statements ले लोगे, आपको items देखने पड़ेंगे. Cross check तो करना ही पड़ेगा.
Hanji. Thank you, ma'am.
Anything else?
Nothing. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, shall we wind up for today, ma'am?
Yeah, I am done with today's session, so we can have rest of the things I can pick up tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
And thank you all the participants. Shall meet tomorrow at the same time at 6 o'clock. Is that okay?